So let's take a peek at what we'll be creating today. This is our cover, and this is made with the Stamperia Music 12 by 12 paper packs. And this is an 8.5 by 6.5 mini album with a 3.5-inch spine. Now on the edge here, what we have is some little trinkets here. And we even have one right up here covering part of the Dritz, and I am using a new Dritz that is a rope style. Now the reason why I call this an easy beginner's no wrap is because the edges we did not wrap. What we did was we used the Tim Holtz corner pieces metal to protect our corners from getting beat up, and also on the back. Isn't that pretty? Let's step inside the album. So we have page 1, 2. So this is a very large, thick pocket, and it has a magnetic closure. Behind here we can slip in picture mats behind it. Now, if you don't want to use and put your photos on some of the pretty artwork of some of the picture mats, you can always do on the back side or double mat them. This opens up and a lot of storage. It can accommodate 4 by 6. So I used all the paper in creating this album and the picture mats. So if you want more, add in some solid colored cardstock. Over here we have a side pocket, and I just have some picture mats in here, and then I have this little folder, and you can slap a picture right on in on both sides if you wanted. We're coming over here, and all we have are 2 really nice looking pockets, and we did use the metallic cardstock to kind of accent some of the gold, and these are just pockets. And I have some picture mats in here, even have one of these. Same over here. Over here, we'll start over here. This is a fold out, and this is magnetic, and it's holding it shut. We have some picture mats just tucked right on in to there. Now picture mats we don't do together. That is all according to your taste. So if you use 4 by 6 photographs, then you can cut your cardstock down to accommodate those. I like to use a variety because I like cropping mine down to smaller sizes, maybe 3.5 by 5, 3 by 3, 4 by 5, all sorts of things. This is a fold out, and it folds out, and there's a pocket over here. And there's also a pocket right here. You can place a photo right here if you wanted to. I just have some of these in here. Tuck those all back. Over here is a frame, and we did not glue this completely down so that we can slide a photo up underneath, then tack it down. Also, we can slide things back behind, and I have a couple large picture mats back there. And this is a fold out. Very large space up there to plant some photos or just one large one. Here we just have a little nook here. You can just tuck some picture mats right on in there. Isn't that just gorgeous paper? Over here we have a very large pocket, and I have some picture mats tucked in there. Whoops, let's get that. Very large. And like I said, this is just a little nook just to tuck something back behind. Here we have a fold out, but we do have a pocket up front. I have some picture mats in there. Let's fold this out. Place right here just to place photos. Over here is another little fold out. place photos here. You can even tuck in a small little photo right behind that. Just like that. Or tag, whatever you'd like. Just folds right back in. Over here is just a series of fold outs. We have this one, and we did put this little corner pieces up here so that we can just tuck some tags or whatever we'd like. Large space, planting some photos. And back here, same thing. Plant some photos here, and we stuck this on here. And plant something in there. This is our waterfall pages, and these 2 pages alone can accommodate 28 photos on the picture mats. So I'm going to show you this, and also in the tutorial I didn't use fancy dies or stamps or anything, so this here was done with a 1/2-inch punch, and I show you exactly how to do it. So I'm going to flip that up. So these just flip up, and what I ended up doing is using Bonita Richards' signature waterfall, where she only puts the paper down at the bottom to conserve on paper. So the top has that, and then all you do is just put your photos right here, cover up that spot, and there's quite a bit. And a place down here. This page over here is the same thing. All of these. And they flip right back up. Here we just have 2 pockets, and I showed you how to make this cute little embellishment. We'll keep these out so you can see the background. Isn't that lovely? And we are coming to the last page where we have a side pocket. And here we have a fold out, but we have a pocket right back here. Fold that out. We have another little nook to tuck things back in, a little side pocket. And we have one right over here. So that is what we're going to be creating. If you are a beginner, do not let this discourage you from even trying. I make it so easy. This is a step-by-step, start to finish, and I take you right on through it. The most important thing is before you begin taking the tutorial is download the free PDF of the materials list so you can comb through it, and there's handy little links there taking you directly to my store so you can purchase items if you need it. But I always say, check your stash, see what you got on hand that you can work into the album to save a little money. Also on that is the free pre-cutting measurement guide. It's going to tell you what to cut your chipboard and your Kraft colored cardstock at, so that when we tackle just the base album, creating that, you're all ready to go. As far as page 1, 2, 3, all the way through to 14, it's the same thing. All your Kraft colored cardstock, because I use Kraft colored, you'll have the measurements, you'll have the scoring, so we are ready, and I do review before we start to make sure that everybody has the correct cuts. So that is what we will be making today. I hope you like it, and most importantly, take your time and have fun. Let's move into the materials list. Materials list. So the first thing that we're going to want is the Stamperia Music paper pack, and we're going to need 2 of those because there's only 10 double-sided sheets. But that is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm just going to flip through some of this. You can kind of get an idea what we're working with here. It's gorgeous. So you're going to need 2 of these. Next, what we're going to use is the Kraft cardstock, and it's a 10-pack, and it's 85 pound, and you'll want 2 of these. So that'll give us 20, and that will be plenty for what we will be doing. You'll want 2 pieces of 12 by 12 medium weight chipboard, and we'll be cutting this down to size. Also, what you're going to want is Tyvek. You'll want a Tyvek envelope, and this is for our binding so that it does not come apart. I recommend using this every time you make a mini album. Now, I'm not going to be using any stamps or die cutting in this. I wanted to make this pretty simple and just using punches. So I am using the EK Tools, and this is the Symphony punch. And this is going to be for our large, wider trim punches, and it works right on into the paper pack because it's a music theme. And this is about 1.8 inches or so of border. Next, I wanted to bring in another one, which is only like a 1/2 inch trim punch, and this is the Elegant Flourish Scrolls. Whoops! Couple things I wanted to add were, one is the larger, and these are really cool. And these are gold because we are accenting our album with some gold here. And you'll get some instruments, and these are the large ones, and they're just like this. And that's H076. H076. Then I wanted to incorporate the smaller gold instruments, and this is H077 or H077. And you'll get a variety of different musical instruments in that. So there is no flowers or anything that I am including in this. I wanted to keep it simple and more masculine. So this is what I decided I was going to use for some different decorations. For our side closure, we'll want the Dritz hook and eye. But there is a new style, and it's the rope style. And this is like a blackish, gunsmoke black. And as you can see, it looks roped. It's really cute. I like that. And we're going to use that for our closure. Inks I'm using is the Tim Holtz Distressed ink, and this is Vintage Photo. And I will be using this throughout the tutorial. Now, because this is an easy no-wrap album, there is the Tim Holtz corner angles or angle corners. So we'll want that, and then you'll have leftovers if you don't already have that. You're also going to want a couple sizes of ribbon, and you can look in your stash to see what you have. This is 1/8 inch wide. You can also use 1/16 inch, and I'm going to use a brown, but use what you have. I'm using the brown because I only have a little bit left on this. And then for our side closure, you'll want some ribbon for that to hook onto our Dritz. And this, I believe, is a 1/4 inch. So 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, whatever you have. And I've got some black here. You're going to want 1 sheet of the 12 by 12 cardstock, and it's the metallic gold. And we have that in our store. You're going to need 2 packs of the magnets that we carry in our store, which are the heavy-duty Kraft magnets. And each pack has 10 magnets in there. They're very strong. So that will give us a total of 20 magnets, which will be 10 pairs, and you should have some left over for another project. You're also going to want a couple packs of Scor-tape, one in the 1/4 inch width and one in the 3/8 inch width. And I'm using my art glitter glue in combination throughout this tutorial, and this is the Dries Clear. Now, if you get this or have this, I really recommend getting that metal tip as the extra add-on that you just kind of plop right on there. It's going to control the flow of the glue that comes out so that you're not wasting. Okay, other things that you're going to want is definitely need a scoring board and a bone folder. You're going to want your scissors, and you will want a ruler. And speaking of rulers, I just came out with a new ruler, and I'm going to grab that and show it to you. So I came out with a new ruler, and what it is one side it's centimeters, millimeters, and the other side is the inches. So this is good for both if you're US resident and you're used to measuring in inches and you want to know. So I know that I buy a lot of card magazines, and all the best ones seem to come right on out of the UK, and the measurements in those magazines are in centimeters. So if I wanted to look and see if they said it was 5 centimeters, I can go and look at right on the ruler. It says 5 centimeters. On the other side, it's going to tell me exactly what that is in inches. And vice versa. If you are someone who's used to measuring in centimeters, it's the same thing. All you'd have to do, and it will spell it right out. If I say 5 1/8, you go here, and right on the other side, it's going to tell you what that is in your centimeters and millimeters. So that is something new that is available now in my store. Last thing you're going to want is a paper cutter, and I think that is it. And of course your Kraft knife. That is very helpful in this tutorial. So let's get started. So you should have all your cardstock and chipboard and Tyvek cut before we begin assembling, and that was on the pre-cutting and measurement guide, and it told you where to score, and that was mentioned that you can download that for free right under this video in the description area. Just click on it and it'll take you straight to our tutorials page where you can click right on it and then get ready for each phase of this tutorial. So let's take a look really quick at what we have and what we labeled. We did have 2 pieces of 1.5 by 8.5 inch Tyvek strips, and we labeled that outside, and we're going to just put that to the side. We had cut 2 pieces that are 1.5 by 8.25 inch, and that was for inside. We'll set that off to the side. We cut our chipboard. We got a front cover and a back quarter that are 8.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and they were both the same cut. We labeled front and back, and then we had our spine, which is the 3.5 inch by 8.5 inch. And we'll be starting with that here shortly. Then what we also did was we cut some Kraft colored cardstock. This was the 85 pound. And we cut one piece that was 8 3/8 by 12 inches, and we labeled that inside covers. And we had a 4 3/4 by 8 3/8 for inside cover. And these two are going to attach just like that. And that was for inside. And then we had cut 6 pieces of our cardstock that were 6 9/16 inch by 8 1/4 inches, and we had scored each one of these at 6 inches. And we folded on those score lines. So let's start assembling. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is place each one of our chipboard pieces. Sorry it's so noisy. I've got my vacuum going, I've got the dogs, the cats, everything going on in the background. We're going to butt these right on up next to each other. Now, this is a no-wrap, easy way of binding your album with no spacing. If you want to wrap the outside of your album with cardstock, you have to have that space in between. Okay? And so do not attempt to wrap your album on the outside with your pieces bound the way I'm going to show you. We're just going to do real easy. It lasts, it looks nice. Okay? Alright, so we have each one of these butt up, level, top and bottom. We're not going to worry about our inside Tyvek pieces and the writing showing, so it won't show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Scor-tape, and I'm already into this roll, and I'm going to use the 3/8. And I am just going to place Scor-tape on each one of these Tyvek pieces. And I'm going to put them next to each other on each one to cover it. So let's do that. Okay, so I have mine covered, and I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure that that is smoothed down. You'll definitely want to clip off any Scor-tape that is peeking over the edges. And so we're just going to smooth this on down. Let's get this ready to go. Put our pieces here together. Great. So the Kraft knife is going to come in handy not only to remove the backing off the Scor-tape there, but it's also going to help us in this tutorial for certain things that we do. Okay. There's that. Let go. There we go. We're going to make sure that these are straight and everything. So this is 1.5 inches wide. Grab your ruler, and I've got my easy read ruler here, and we're going to be at 3/4 inch. When do you have these butt up? 3/4 inch from the seam over, and it's going to be like that too over here. So let's just make those marks. Okay, so for the first one, we'll start over here, match them up. They're butted up, nice and flush. And I'm going to lay this piece, and I will just place it down there. And we'll smooth it. We're going to do the same thing on this one. We'll butt it up. We'll remove the Tyvek backing. We'll line it up there, and we will place it just like that, and then we will use our bone folder. So let's do that. The idea is just to make sure that you have enough on each side of that seam. So if you get it a little off, it's okay. It's going to get covered, and we're just going to burnish that down really good. Now, one thing about Tyvek envelopes, sometimes you get a seam like this, okay? That is not a major ordeal. If you want to use some of your glue and just glue that down a little bit, you can. Let's set this off to the side, and as you notice, this is our inside right now. You can open and close just fine. Grab your 2 pieces of cardstock that says inside covers, and now we're going to use our 1/4 inch. And what we will do is take it and go right on the edge there, right on along the edge, without going over the edge, and line it all the way down. And you'll definitely want to trim off any Scor-tape that is peeking over. And we'll burnish that down really good. Alright, here's something that's going to help you, is if you have your your paper cutter or a flat edge, perhaps you want to use your scoring board, do so. But what we're going to do is we're going to place this down. So I'm going to use the flat edge of that, and it's going to make things easier for me to keep this straight. Now I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to push that up against the bar here. I'm going to take this, and we are 8 3/8 this way, and I'm going to push it up against the other side of the bar, and I'm going to match up just overlapping onto that Scor-tape, and then I'm going to burnish it down. All this is just to make a nice big piece for us. I'm going to move this out of the way, and now I'm going to grab this. So what's going to happen is we're going to apply our Scor-tape to the back of this, and we can flip that over if you want, but we're really not going to see our writing by the time we get our papers down. If you notice, it will leave you a little bit of a black border, top, bottom, and sides. And that's what we want because we have the black, and I wanted to be able to match in with the inner cardstock pages so it looked nice. Okay, let's take this, and I am just going to flip this over and apply Scor-tape. Now, the idea behind this is you definitely have to have rows of Scor-tape, especially through here, because when we go to place it down on the inside, you're going to want to make sure it's down and there's no bubbling effect going on. So I do use a lot of Scor-tape. The first thing I'm going to do, and what I like to do, is just go around the edges of my piece like a picture frame. So you can either wrap it around or cut off little pieces like this, however it is that you like to do. But that's what we're going to start off by doing. And by wrapping edges, I mean kind of keeping it going so when you peel it off, it comes off in one piece. We'll burnish this all down as soon as we get all of the Scor-tape off. So I'm going to use this as my measurement of where exactly those seams are, approximately, and that's where I'm going to start laying strips across. And we'll get some in here, but we won't need as much as this. So I'm going to continue laying my Scor-tape next to each other in this spot right in here. I have this all down. Let's finish this off by placing some right in here. And we don't need that much because it will hold. We'll just do 3 inside on each side. After you lay this, let's use our bone folder to burnish it down really good. Make sure you get those edges, especially in here. So we're going to take a moment to burnish this all down. Our next step is to remove all the Scor-tape backing. And when we place this, we want to place it evenly so that you have the same amount of black showing side to side, top to bottom. Just like that. And I'll show you as soon as I get mine off. I've got my Scor-tape backing off, and I'm going to place this. Make sure you don't have any Scor-tape peeking over the edges. I'm going to bring this down a little closer so we'll see what I'm doing. And Scor-tape is not forgiving, but I caution against using regular glue. I'm a little off here, but that's all right. You're not going to be able to tell. Okay, this is important. Let's start burnishing this down, especially around this area in here. You just want to make sure that's all done. So once it's down, now I want you to carefully pull up your side. You should have a nice crease there with no bubbling because we used, ooh, I'm out of focus. There we go. Because we used the Scor-tape. Now, had we used glue, sometimes glue does not get all over evenly, and that's when bubbles start to happen, or the glue isn't completely set. So we're just going to put our hand here and fold up on this side. And this is the inside of our album. Okay, and the outside. Now for this, because I want to make sure that we're going to be okay, I did add in these outside Tyvek pieces, and all we're going to do is we'll leave the album like this, and these are 8.5 inches, and we will wrap it around like that. So I'm going to show you a technique that might be helpful for that, and again we will want our Scor-tape, and we're going to completely cover each of these pieces that are 1.5 by 8.5. So let's do that, and then we'll get these on. So I've got the Scor-tape backing on This is the inside. Remember, do not try to flip this back the other way. You will definitely destroy your album. It is not meant. This is inside only. All right, so if you have your album in front of you like this, here's the Scor-tape. We're going to be removing that. But the easiest way is you don't have to be exact, but place it down. Sometimes our cuts are not exact, so if you place it down and you're not coming exactly to each edge, center it in between, okay? And then we're just going to pinch. One thing you can do is just by folding this in half might be helpful. Just fold it directly in half. Make sure your Scor-tape is still on, the backing is still on when you do this. And you can always put this on your scoring board too. Alright, I'm going to release the Scor-tape backing. Make sure you clip off any overhang before you start doing this. Okay, so leave your album like this. Actually, I'm going to turn mine. It's going to be easier. My opening is over here, so I can see a little better. I'm just going to make sure I have some up there. It does not have to be exactly straight because it gets covered up. Okay, do not do this while your album is flat out. You need to do it while it's in this position. And then you're just going to fold it over with your hand. Starting from the center is usually best, I found. So as you can see, mine isn't quite even, but that's okay. Now what we're going to do is we can open that up and we can get that Scor-tape down. Use our tool. Straighten it out a little. You want to run your fingernail right in that groove. You can do that too. So when it opens, it disappears, that little lump. That's something new that I started to do. Put your fingernail in there and just kind of push that in. And then there's no lump. It's flat. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Again, you have to have your album in this position when doing it. And I'm ready to go. So I've got that side down first. Now I'm going to just push it right on over, smoothing it down the spine. Take your fingernail and just kind of push that in. Open it up. That seems to be the easiest way to avoid any lumps and bumps. And the Tyvek will not tear from your fingernail going in there. So open it up. This is our outside cover and our inside. Looks good. Let's install our inner pages. We'll just open that right on up. Matters not which way. We had these. So what you're going to want to do is flip these over and the peak would be up. We're going to grab our 3/8 inch Scor-tape and we're going to lay that right in the middle down there. Now one thing you can do is you can actually use 2/4 inch and then whatever, but for this what we're going to do is when you have this little extra little spot right there, unless you have 1/2 inch on hand, you can always, before we place it, put a nice thin line of glue there. You can do that. So just make sure though when you're placing your Scor-tape, it's right at the edge. And then you'll want to clip off any overhang. So I'll show you the little glue technique when we get there. But right now I'm just going to start laying my stuff. So let's get all of these ready to go. I've got all the Scor-tape on the back. So I'm going to show you before we do this. It's sometimes easier if you understand what we're doing before we do it, rather than flying blind. So you see where our crease is? That's our marker. Our first one is going to be centered from top to bottom to where if you were to place this, and we had our Scor-tape off, we had a little glue or whatever on that little bit, you could just place this centered top to bottom and this hits the edge of our book. Okay, once that's down, our next one, and that would be down, our next one fits and butts right up next to it, and it's easy to line it up because you've already got this and it's going to fit directly next to it, and then so on. So let's do our first one together. I'm going to remove the Scor-tape backing first before I do this, and you definitely want that metal tip to avoid too much glue coming out. So I'm just going to put a real fine line. I think I need to refill my bottle. So in that little space in there, I'll put a line, making sure I don't go over the little crease score line. And I'm going to turn it this way. It might be easier for you to see. Here is my crease. I'm going to pull this up. Actually, it'll be easier this way. I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to put this edge right in that crease, and that will allow me, before the Scor-tape or anything grabs, to look top to bottom and just try to get that to where it's somewhat even. So wherever you place this, you're going to have to place the other ones right in line. So, and I did it like that. So it's down. Now I'm going to use my bone folder to smooth it down. If you see any of your glue peeking out the edges, you'll need to clean that up. So there's my first one. Let's go with the second. And I should have brought mine down a little bit further, but it's very hard for me to see without getting my head in the video. Here we go. And I'm no longer standing to Kraft. I'm actually sitting on my bottom, and it's hard for me to see over. Okay, so this is easy, and I am going to turn it like this so you can see. So I've got this one in. Here's the edge, and I'm going to line it up with the crease right in there. It'll just butt right on up next. This is going to line up with the top of this page and the bottom as best you can. Once you get it where you want, just place it and press in the center or down here, whatever you need to do. And then you'll use your bone folder. And if you have any glue seeping out that you can see, you'll want to definitely make sure you clean that up. And that fits right on over the other. We'll move to our next one, and we're going to keep going until they are all in the book. Okay, I'm going to turn it so I can see what I'm doing. Line it up with the top and the bottom. I'll press it. Now I'll use my bone folder. Okay, so those are even in, as you can see. They look good. Next, and I'm just going to keep going. Okay, well, I'm on my last one here, and I'm just going to plant it the way I have been. One thing, because I placed mine so high, and I'd rather have the lower for the bottom, I'll be flipping my album upside down. And I'll show you what I mean. It's just a matter of taste, and I guess it's just the way I feel. But you notice I have a very thin, it's very nice, even up there. And on this, I have just a little bit more headroom. So the one with the most headroom is going to be the top of my album. And that means that my seam is going to be on my front page now. And I don't have a problem with that. And I don't need to erase this, but because I'm turning mine around, I'm going to be erasing that, and I'm going to be putting back and front over here, because it's going to get covered anyway, just to keep me straight. And that looks pretty good. You should be able to open and close, and you should have a nice binding system. And that binding system, so long as you placed your Scor-tape like I told you, you used some good glue, excuse me, and you definitely burnished it down really good, you'll be just fine. And it's going to last. And you won't have any issues. Okay, there is our album. Now don't worry about it flinging open. It's very stiff because it's brand new. And we do have a latch that's going to latch this shut. And that is where this comes in. And one piece will be placed after we get our decorative paper down. And then the last one gets placed at the end of the tutorial, as soon as we have all our stuff in there, to make sure we know exactly how much closure we need to keep it taut. And of course, leaving room for our picture mats. Let's move on to decorating the outside. In our paper pack, you will locate this sheet. It's quite gorgeous. And I wanted her on the front of our cover. On the back, you will see this. So the first cut we're going to make, and we're going to look at it with it turned like this, we're going to measure over 8.5 inches and cut. This is what you should have. So this piece we're going to put in a pile we're going to call our reserve pile, so that we can grab back at it. It's like our scrap pile. So you'll be making one reserve pile for all of our decorative paper cuts, and you'll have another reserve pile for all of our leftover cuts that we had. We have a ton of this from when we constructed our album. So we'll have a second reserve pile just with our solid colored cardstock. So I've got my solid colored cardstock all in one pile. This is going into a separate pile, because we have to grab back into that to make the most of our paper. Alright, we're going to turn this now upside down. We're going to measure over 6 3/8 inch and cut. So what we have now is this piece. We'll stick this in reserves for now. We may be grabbing back that for the spine cover, but for now, this is our front cover. So let's set this off to the side and find our back cover. In your paper pack, you will find this sheet. It's towards the back of the pack. On the flip side, we have the musical notes. We're going to do the same thing we just did. We're going to look at it sideways. We'll measure over 8.5 inches and cut. This piece goes in our reserves. Turn it so it's upside down right now. We're going to measure over 6 3/8 inch and cut. This piece is going to be for our back cover. It is going to fit exactly like the other one's going to fit. This piece put in your reserves. Alright, grab this piece back out of your reserves. On the back it looks like this. And the width, this is 8.5 inches, and this is about 5 3/4, yeah, about that, 5 3/4 or so. 5 5/8. Yeah. And what I think we're going to do is we're going to use that for our spine to wrap around. And it's going to fit perfectly, because if we center that, and then we have our front cover piece, it's going to work perfectly. Now, I didn't leave this all in one piece. It's going to be easier for us to work in several pieces here. So your front and back cover stick off to the side. We're going to work with our spine. And for our spine, we're going to want to cover this with our Scor-tape. You can use your 1/4 inch or 3/8. I'm going to use my 3/8. The reason why I'm going to cover this is because I've got to get around this, and I want to make sure that this part gets completely covered. Now in here we could probably go just several lines, so we can probably do that. But first thing, let's go around the edges like a picture frame. And the reason why I like to do that is because I know that my edges are all covered. Sometimes when we're doing Scor-tape, we don't quite get to the edge when we're laying long strips. This is my my way of making sure everything gets covered at the edges. We'll be cutting off any overhang of Scor-tape. We definitely don't want any of that. It will look messy if we do. So grab your album and kind of look at it with this here and center it side to side. So you should have some even overhang. Make sure your album is, the front cover, back cover is straight out and not open. Just lay it there and give it a little pinch at that corner on each side, making sure you keep it semi-tight. Making sure you just give a little pinch where it's going around the corner. Okay, so that can be our guideline right there. That can be our guideline. Now we can just fold that over and do a soft, rather than put it on a scoreboard, we can just do like this and try to keep that even. If it's easier for you to get it on your scoreboard, rather than using our bone folder, we'll do more of a soft. And see what we get. So now once I have that, I can see if that's going to fit, and that's like a perfect fit for me. All right, that's going to tell me exactly where I need to place the extra Scor-tape. So I'm going to place this, and we're going to do things a little differently right on that crease. In the past, I told you not to, but in this case, we are. And we're going to put it right on that crease. Okay? Make sure your crease is still good once you get that Scor-tape down in there. A little different way of doing it. Nope. Okay. We'll place one here. We're going to place one right here. Right next to that one, right next to this one. We'll put one down the center, and we'll go one here. So we don't need to have everything, and one here. Let's burnish those down. Make sure that you know where your crease is. And you can always recrease it. I need to clip some overhang off. All right, and I still have my creases here, and they're soft creases. So when I place this down on here, I'm going to make sure I am covering that white Tyvek. And we can always, and this is something we might want to do now, is to grab our distress ink and get up here, the top and the bottom. So none of the white core of the paper is going to show. And we'll do that with the front and backs too, but for now. And in the past, I told you to start with one side. And I still think that that holds true, that that might be the easiest. I'm going to remove that. So we'll place one side down at a time. Either way, whether years ago you took my tutorial and I did it a different way, you're going to get to the same point. But I try to make it as easy as I can. With each teaching, I find different ways are easier. So you have your crease. You're going to want to make sure, again, your album is not open. Okay, now I'm going to have to stand up so I can see over this. What I'm going to do is place this first down on the spine, making sure my creases are here, not to push this down yet. I want to be even. And I'm pretty even there. Okay, so I got that. Now remember, you still have to keep your album. And at this point, you can hold it up and press over to cover. Just keep pressing over with your finger. I am front right here. Don't do anything yet until you get this down. because we still need to be in this position. Okay. Your finger, you can lightly, actually your nail might do something to it, but lightly run your bone folder. Do not cut into it. Just the side edge right here to push in. Now if you can't and you're afraid you're going to do something and ruin your paper or poke through it, then don't. There's another way to do it. You can just open up your album, but I'm going to use my finger because I don't have a sharp edge on my nail. Or you can use this. Both ways seem to work pretty good. All right. So now once you have that, this is the part where you're going to have to do slowly. Okay. Slowly open it up, and by pushing in that crease, the paper in the crease, it seems to help eliminate any bulging out, but most of the time you're not laying your album flat anyway. So, and I'm just going to bring that out. And that looks good. And then this side, make sure I'm in that crease. Make sure that your stuff is down, or you will get buckling. Now I'm going to split this in half and lay it down. Smooth it all down. Oops. And down in here. And that looks good. Now, one thing you can do is if you get some splitting or whatever, you can take your dauber and you can lightly go over the side. In which case I'm going to, I didn't split, but I want to show you how it looks. It looks pretty good. See? And that will help with anything. Or you can cover it up. So I think that that looks good. I'm all set to go. Make sure I got my front and my back. My front. So for this, and also if you have your chipboard where it looks like it's doing something like this, what you can do for that is, let me grab something and I'll show you if I can find something really quick. You can take a fine, smooth type of nail file and just kind of get that off there. You won't want a real rough one, you want a smoothing one, more fine. And what that will do is clear that right up. And I'll do it there just in case I'm not seeing any, but I just wanted to show you what you can do. And that will help clean up your edges from your cut. Okay, so when we place this down, we are going to use our distress ink. And we're going to go top, side, bottom, and we will leave this side alone. So I'm just going to take a moment and distress the edges. You can go heavy, you can go dark, whatever it is that you'd like to do. And then we will bring it to where we have some black showing, we are centered, and we are even with the top of our paper here. So that's what this is going to look like. Okay, so one thing is right underneath this side, we're going to need to go 2 rows. And the reason why is because we have Dritz side closure that is going to need to be there. And if we don't do that, we might, it could lift up over time if we just don't have this completely down to our chipboard. I'm just going to go around the edges like I have been, like a picture frame to start on my piece. For me, that's easiest. Okay, again, behind this side is where I put 2 strips. And we don't really have anything heavy or on the front cover. There's going to be a couple things, but it's not going to be a ton. So I'm going to go right in between these two pieces of Scor-tape. If you are adding more stuff and a bunch of heavy stuff, you might want to put 2 strips here and here, or 3 strips in between. I think for what we're doing, 1 strip in between each side will be just fine. So I'm going to turn this over and get off any Scor-tape that is peeking over the edge. And I think I got it all. And I'm going to be placing this. I've got all the Scor-tape backing off, and I'm going to place this. So I'm going to make sure I'm lined up with the sides over here. Bring this down, at least do as best I can. Place that and place that. I think I'm okay there. Okay, so I can open up my album and use my bone folder to make sure this is all down. So one thing is, I want to tell you, if you have a little bit of your Tyvek showing, which I have a little bit, I didn't get it quite, you can use your knife to chop and try to get that off there. Tyvek is kind of hard to cut sometimes. So this is what my cover looks like, and I think it looks pretty darn good. We're going to flip it over, and this is where, when you flip it over so that you don't get this backwards, just rotate it. And this is going to be the same thing, and it'll look like it matches in really good. The same as the front did. So on this, I'm going to use my brown Distress ink at the top, this side only, and the bottom. I'm going to leave this side alone. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is flip it over, and we're going to go around the outside like a picture frame with our Scor-tape. Alrighty, so look at your page, how it's going to play, and it's this side. On this side is the side that's going to get 2 rows. 2 rows right down there. And again, we don't need a ton of Scor-tape on this. We'll go 1 down the middle and 1 down either side. And we'll use our bone folder to make sure that it's all burnished down really good. And now we're going to place it just like we did before. I've got that, the backing off. Whoops, that wouldn't have been good if it stuck to something. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. It's easier for me to do it like this to show you. So here is the edge. And I want to make sure that I'm even there. Okay, again, I'm going to fold my pages back. Oops. And I'm going to burnish this all down really good, especially where that area is over there. So this is what you should have when you are done. And it looks good. So one more tip I want to give you is on your edges. Okay, I don't have any splits, but sometimes splits just happen. So here is a quick tip that you can do, and make sure the glue that you're using dries clear. You can run some glue right on there. Okay. Now, even though this dries clear, we're just going to rub this right on into that spine area, just in case people are having issues. All right, and then after that dries, I can definitely go back with my ink if I need, but I don't think I'm going to need it. So that's already starting to dry. I can't even see nothing. Okay, let's move on to installing the outside of the Dritz. So we're going to need to get into that. And let's grab both of them at this time. The one that gets glued down is this one. This is one that we're going to use to help measure, but then this will get done at the end of the tutorial. So we have our album. Make sure before you do this, your glue, if you did that remedy, is perfectly dry. You'll want to get a binder clip, or perhaps you have these little ratchet style or dills. The art glitter glue works perfectly with the metal, so it's going to stay for me. So I'm going to put some glue just like that. We're just going to bring that right on over, centered somewhere. Use this for your guide, how much room you actually need. So I can back it up. Just make sure that when you're measuring that it's easy to get in and out to latch. And that's good for me. Okay, now comes the time, once you have it there, we're just going to use our binder clip or our clamps, and we're going to hold it there. While that's drying, I'm going to go get me some coffee, and I'm going to refill my bottle of glue. This, in the meantime, keep it safe, and we will use that at the end of the tutorial. I've got the Tim Holtz corners, and the copper is going to be on the front, and the gold is going to be on the back. So the first thing is grab some wire, or grab your little pliers if you have any. If you don't, you can use your fingers. And we're going to apply some glue to this. So I'm going to get in here, like so, and I'm going to get in back here a little. So these corners up here are going to be done just a little bit differently because of course we can't wrap it around the side. Our book won't open. The metal on this is too strong. So I'm going with the copper on the front, and I'm going to place it in the corner, and then I can use my fingers to bend it around. This is where this comes in handy to help get that down. And any glue that seeps out, any glue that seeps out, I can just mop that right on up. But I think I got the right amount on there. Same thing for down here. This will completely wrap. And that's going to protect our corners there. Okay, so for down here, we're going to leave this flap. However, this one that's going to sit on the side needs to be folded in. So this is where using these is great, because this is where you can get them nice and flat. Just like that. And now you won't be able to see any unevenness. So the bottom flap is going to remain down on here, and I'll put glue around here. So I'm going to leave my book like this. I'm going to place this where I think it needs to be, and I'm going to pinch the bottom around. And this is where your binder clips or whatever you got going is going to work really good. Once I think I have it down, I want that glue really to make sure that it gets down up here and it's pretty straight. Making sure I'm not clipping any of my pages there. I'll just clamp that down. Okay, for up here, this flap remains. It's the side one that gets pushed back behind. And I'm going to clamp. Let's flip it over to the back. And we'll get these pieces on, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. So that's going to have to dry. In the meantime, let's get for our little pocket. In your reserves, we're going to pull this piece out. This is the part that has her feet, and we're going to turn it so that our feet are upside down. We're going to measure over 6.5 inches and cut. Let's get our scoring board out, and we will place it so we're 6.5 across the board. Her feet are down here at 3/8 inch. We're going to score. Let's flip it over so we are looking at it like this. We're going to turn it, and we're going to have the blue mostly up here. We're going to go 1/2 inch. And this is 3.5 inches, so we're going to go at the 3 inch. Okay. The next thing that we're going to want to do is lay this down, and you see where your score line is? Pull this up until it meets the score line. Make sure that you are even, and we will fold it up. You with me on that? All right, I'm going to get this out of the way. We will need our bone folder. All right, so what we're going to want to do is, this is actually going to be our outside. We're going to look at it like this, and we are going to fold this over. And we will use our tool here, like so. So now fold it again. So now you have that little nice little lip right there. Okay, the lip up here. Now that little 3/8 inch, and I'm right here, we had a 3/8 inch. We can fold on that. Now open it up. Let's add our glue, and we're to press it down. Okay. Now on the bottom, her feet are up now. Now on the bottom, we're going to fold. Now my lip is back behind. We're going to fold up on this. Okay. So now you should be even. When you close it, here's that little lip right there. So this is going to end up being our pocket as soon as we get this all taken care of here. And we're just going to glue that down. Okay, this part, that little fold right there, we're going to add our glue. And we're also going to add glue right back here, so it's going to stick down. Add a little glue here and right across the bottom. And that is still open up there. Now all we have to do is tuck that back, and we have our bottom. Make sure you are matching up. And use your bone folder. This is just a little easy little pocket that we created that's going to go on the front. See? Let's grab it. I'm going to remove this one on the front, and this is going to set off to the side like that. I want to add a Scor-tape, and the Scor-tape is going to go on this side. This is the side I want to be able to see. So I'm going to grab my 1/4 inch Scor-tape, and I'm going to place it around the edges like a picture frame. And I want to use Scor-tape because it's very sticky. It's non-forgiving, so that's a good thing because we don't want it to forgive and come up. Oops, I got that a little crazy, didn't I? Alright, I'm going to remove the backings. So a little bit about Scor-tape is it's kind of like Scotch tape. You know how Scotch tape, the more you put your finger on it, the less potent it is? Well, that's the same thing with Scor-tape. So one thing you're going to want to do is make sure your hands are fully washed clean of any lotions, oils, anything. And I do this throughout the tutorial, washing my hands to make sure, because we have natural oils on us. And it does, the more we touch it, which is impossible not to do, the less potent it becomes. I'm just going to place this at an angle here. And I think that's good enough. And I'm going to open this up if I can. I think these are pretty well set now. And make sure it's down. there is our little pocket that we would like to have on our cover. So now we are done with any clamps, any of this, and I would like to put a couple things in here. So in your paper pack you will find this sheet. On the back it looks like this. Let's grab our scissors, or you can put it on your paper cutter. But what we want to do is come straight in this way first, right at the top of these little bookmarks. And we're going to come over to where the edge meets and right on down. So for me, and then I can cut these out. I'm just going to go like this because I don't want to cut into the other pieces. So now all I'm going to do is cut out and around these, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink around the edges with my Distress ink. So let's do that. And once they're done, into the pockets they go. Also on this piece, we're going to cut this, but notice that this is supposed to belong to this. What we're going to do on this is just cut out, and you can see where the line is that divides the two. We're going to cut out this one, just up to that point. And once I get this cut out, I'm going to ink around the edges of it. So this may be a little wide for a pocket. I'm not sure. No, it fits right on in there perfectly. Perfect size. So I'm going to ink around the edges of this, and then I'll put this in my pocket. Just like that. This piece we're going to put in our reserves for now. I can hear my vacuum. Okay, you have 3 large pieces of instruments. Some of the packs may have different instruments in them and whatnot. I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to cut off that little ornamental. It looks like it's a little wire. I'm going to, instead of cutting it with my scissors, I'm just going to get this off the best I can by unraveling it. These I'll put back. And this is going to glue down right here. Now be patient with the gluing process of this. Now see this here, the little loop? You don't have to have that on there. In fact, it'll come right off. I have a pair of wire snips, and I'm going to carefully just snip to get that off there. And it comes right off. Okay, so it's going to lay right over that Dritz, and it will hold on. It'll have plenty to hold on to. So I just want to make sure that I got to clean the top of this, that I get enough glue on there. And I'm going to need, actually, my binder clips, so I lied. I'm going to need that. And it's going to go here, and it will lay flat on that Dritz. So just make sure you have it, and we're going to clamp it. In your small little ornamental things, you will have this, and I'm just going to clip off, take that off, and that's going to glue down right here. So you're going to have to be patient because the horn is angled a little there at the end. And this is just going to glue down right like that. So it may take you a bit. If you need to use E6000, do so. I'm sorry about the dog barking. That's Sissy. Now with your 1/16 or 1/8 inch ribbon, make a small bow, whether you're using black, blue, brown. I'm using the brown. Let's just make a small little bow. Now hot glue is usually the best to use for a quick adhesive, but it's going to go right there. And I am going to use a little hot glue. You can use your art glitter glue. You're going to have to let it have its time to glue down. So that is our cover. And when that's done drying, it's going to look like this. And I think that's going to look really nice. So, alrighty, I'm going to allow this to dry. And then we're going to move on in to page 1. And page 1 is actually here, the inside cover. And how I identify each page is like reading a book. Page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, so that I can separate in the video the different pages in case you leave off on page 3, you leave the video, come back, and it doesn't start back up where you left off. You'll know you're on page 3, and you can fast forward it until you get to that point. And it's just easier with our pre-cutting measurement sheet so that you know where what goes where. And that's why when I labeled them, I gave it a 1, a 2, a 3. The 1 represents page 1, the 2 would represent the pieces go to page 2, and so on. One thing that you will have are 6 pieces of 3/4 inch. They were 3/4 inch by 8 1/4 inch, and we labeled those page strips. There were 6. And all you're going to do is take your 1/2 inch punch, and you're going to punch along the long side of each one of these. And right before we get to placing our page 2, we'll install these. So let's get those all ready. We're on page 1 and on the pre-measurement cutting guide for our solid colored cardstock. Let's make sure that we have everything we need. And I'm going to grab my scoring board so that it might be easier for you. But I had you cut a 5.5 inch by 12 inch piece of cardstock, and we labeled that page 1 base pocket. And what we ended up doing was, whoops, I have it this way. We ended up scoring that at 5 3/4 inch and 6 1/4 inch. And at this time, you can go ahead and fold on those score lines using your bone folder to help with those creases. And then we'll set this off to the side. We had 2 pieces that were 2 inch by 5.5 inches, and we labeled that page 1 accordion. So what we're going to do for the folding on this, and I already folded one, and we're going to fold this one together, is we're going to fold back this way towards us. Okay, and then here's that. We're going to fold back the other way, kind of like an accordion. And then we'll fold this back the opposite way. Kind of makes a fan. Maybe that's easier description. So we got 2 of those. We'll just set those off to the side. Now we also cut a 5.5 inch by 6 1/4 inch, and we labeled that page 1 top flap. And what we did was we laid this so we were 6 1/4 inch across our board. We scored at 1.5 inches and 2 inches. So and at this time, you can go ahead and fold on those. And you'll end up with something looking like this. And we'll set those off to the side. We'll be getting those as soon as we get our decorative paper ready to go. In your paper pack, you will find this piece. On the back, it's this beautiful blue color. And that's what's going to be our base page. And we're going to cut for page 1 and 2, our base pages here. So first thing we want to do is we'll turn our paper like this so we all have the same leftovers. Actually turn it to where it's going this way. This is down here. So we're going to measure over 8 inches and cut. So this is what we look like. This piece goes in our reserves. Now all we have to do is measure over 6 inches and cut that right in half. we're going to set this piece here off to the side. We're not going to put it into our reserves. We're going to put it somewhere separate so we don't accidentally cut into it. This is for our page 2. And now we have our page 1 base. Now's the time to grab your eraser, and you can just erase any writing on our little accordion fan pieces. We don't really have to worry about this too much. Alright, but this is how it's going to play out. This is our base that goes like this. These are our little pieces that we're going to glue in on the inside here. Just like that on the side, so that it will come down, and when it closes we can keep it shut, and this will go on this side in there. Like so. As you can see, they'll line up better so that they won't be seen. Now the next thing that we will be doing is this piece back here, because I didn't want to cut into new pieces and whatnot, but I wanted to do this as an assembly. This is actually going to come hook back behind, and then it can come back down over the top, and then it will latch. Okay, so we will be using our punch for right there. We will sit the top flat piece, we'll set off to the side. Now, because the fact that this is going to kind of open a little, and we will see a little bit of thing back here, I want us to put something down, something colorful. And this is a great time for us to get into the back of our paper pack. So let's, just a little something back there. Let's tear off our back piece. You see the trim piece, this side right here? We're just going to slice that right on down. So what we're going to get is the tan and the blue. So let's cut that, and I'll show you mine. So this is what you should have. I'm just going to lay that right on down. This should be 5.5 inches. But I'm going to use my pencil, and I'm going to make a pencil mark, and I'm going to trim this. I'll put the rest in my reserves. Now, because we are going to be coming in like this, we're going to have to lay this down first, and then this is going to have to go on top. So let's use our glue, apply glue, and we are just going to put that right there. And that is on the inside of our piece, just to give it a little color back there. Now, one thing I have found, and this is a tip, is that when you are using your glue, it's always best to use your bone folder to make sure that it's down, so you don't get any ripples or any warping. And it also will push out the excess glue and air that's caught underneath. I'm going to take my little dauber back here, and I'm going to just ink. Let's grab one of our accordion. Now, the edge is going to go on the back at the edge. Notice where our score line is, and you do not want to be on that score line. That's our point of where we need to place it. So it's above the score line. So if you were to pull this up, if you were to push this all back down and pull this up, you can make sure that you are contained and you are not hanging over the edges. Okay? So for this, I'm going to use my Scor-tape, and I'm going to use my 3/8 because I find that it's easier. Again, your first peak is going to be inside. This edge is going to go against the edge there. So I'll lay some Scor-tape here. And if you have any Scor-tape peeking over the edges, you definitely are going to want to clip any of that off. Not only will it make your album look nice and clean, it will avoid from any other paper sticking to something that should not be sticking. All right, so we know that that's going to be down. While we're at it, we're going to place Scor-tape on this side. It will be much easier for us. And we're going to do the same thing with our other one. So if you notice, it's going to look like this, both on kind of the same side. So let's do it on this one. So the Scor-tape that the backing we're going to take off is this one. Remember the edge is here, and the edge is going to come and meet here. We're going to leave the Scor-tape on this side. So it's this side. And so I'm going to release that side. And again, I'm watching to see where that is. So I'm just going to place that right on the edge without going over the edge. And I'll place that down. And you're definitely going to want to use your bone folder. Okay? So when you press it back down, it should look like this. Same thing, I'm going to release the side with the pokey. I don't want it like this going down, you see? I want it to where it's like this. So this is where you're going to be even with where you put it on the other side. So now when this all comes back down, it's going to be contained in there. And you won't be able to see. It'll be tucked in. Now, if you got it a little off like I did, it's easy to fix that little remedy. Just run your ink along the edges. It'll cover up anything. I looked like I did okay out here, but I got to match it up now. There's that. And since I did it back there, I'm going to ink the edges of here, here, and here. And down here. The back we don't have to worry about because that is going to be down. So let's take a moment and do that. So that's all I did. Let's find our paper. So this one sheet is going to help us with our, not only the front of this, but it's going to give us what we need for this. So looking at your paper like this, and this came from my reserves, and on the back it looks like this. We're going to turn it so the little cupid, the little cherub, is facing like this. And we are going to measure over 2 7/8 inch and cut. Okay, so this is what you should have. And this is going to be a good fit, but we have to trim it down. And we also have to trim this one down. So this, we'll trim them both together. And the easiest way is, you see I have it like this and this. I'm just going to turn it around. So now we're upside down on both. We're going to measure over 5 3/8 inch and cut. This piece here, this piece here belongs to this one. And we're not going to worry about that being short because we are going to trim, punch this. So we'll set that off to the side. Let's make sure we fit side to side. You should have a border all the way around. If you were to look at your piece, here's the back. You have 2 score lines. If you were to press down on the score line that you inked, and just put that right there, you will notice if you place it, your edges will frame this perfectly and it will look good. So we can just open that up and it makes it so it's smoother. And on this, I'm just going to apply glue. Take a look at that. That looks even. This is where I want to use my bone folder, get on those edges, and you will notice that any glue that seeps out the edge when you're doing this is excess glue. As you can see, you can wipe it off or use towel, paper towel, whatever it is. And it keeps it flat rather than warping. So there is that. All right, let's set this off to the side. And we have a shorter flap here. That's what goes back behind this. And so it's right up here, our score lines. and here. So here is where I wanted to do the musical. So all I'm going to do is punch along this side, not the short side. So let's do that. After you punched your pieces, you'll notice that you get these really cute musical notes, punch outs. So if you want, you can save those. I'll see if I can't use these in the album for decorations. These are really cute. Okay, so this is what you should have. Now, one thing is, notice we have some open edges, and that is where we are going to do some work here in closing those up to make sure it's more sturdy. So this is where we want to get into our reserve cardstock, and we're going to cut about 1/8 of an inch off two pieces that are approximately 1/8 of an inch. Okay, you can eyeball that, do whatever it is, but I'm just going to eyeball that and cut 2, just like that. So this is going to be my front. Here's my flap. It's going to go back behind this piece. So I'm going to turn this over to the back side. Here are my 2 pieces. So I'm going to, and you can just do it the length to your first score line here if you want. I'm a little short, but that's okay. But I am going to bring this all the way up to here, and I'm going to apply some glue. And that's just going to strengthen it. A lot of punches have the open edges like that. And you don't have to do this, but for me, I'm going to. Again, I did not give you the measurement for how tall because all you need is enough to get down enough. And you can just measure that, cutting a piece of your cardstock and bringing it down and snipping it short of that first one. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over and make sure that I get any glue seeping over the edges cleaned off. Okay, we're going to lay a magnet now. So let's grab one of our magnets. And I got one right here. And I do have its mate, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so we do need to attach this. It'll be much easier for us for measuring, so let's do that. Let's just place our piece, grab our Scor-tape. You can use your 1/4 inch or 3/8. I'm looking at the back side. I've got 2 score lines. The bottom one, I am going to place this right below that bottom score line. I'll just lay a few pieces there. If you prefer to use your glue, you can. I am using Scor-tape because it's quick. I don't have to worry about it slipping around. Once it's down, because you definitely don't want this to get on crooked. So, all right, where's my little thing here? Okay, I took off the backing. Notice you have the lower score line and the top score line. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking this, and I am going to bring the top part of this even with the top here where that score line is. Okay, and I'm going to guide it over so it stays straight, and that's it. That's all there is to it. And it's back behind, so it's down. So right now, do your little things. So this is important because this is where we're going to figure out where we need to be. So if you place that on top and this comes over, so we know according to this, because it needs to have its room and we don't want to pull it too tight, that underneath here our magnet to catch on is going to be above the B. Is good. Okay, open it up at 2 1/4 inches up from this down, we're going to lay our first magnet. So 2 1/4 would put me right about here. I lost one of my magnets. We'll place that one here. You should have, and we're going to cover that up because nobody's going to see that. And we don't want it to get hooked. So on your back cover, we still have that really nice trim. We're not going to use it on that. What we're going to do is just cut a piece off here. And we're going to make sure we get these edges really good. We're just going to place it over. And again, make sure that you get on those edges to get all the air out and that this lays flat so that nothing catches on it. And as you can see, I've got glue seeping out because the bone folder did its job. I put too much glue. So just get it flat. That's all you need to do. Perfect. All right, before we do anything else, and our magnet's going to go on this side, we can just pull this in, take a look. This. Let's grab our ink and our distresser so that it matches the sides here. And this is going to be shown on the outside. And I'm just going to go distress this now, going around the trim too. And again, up here I'm going to press so I can get that edge. Well, that is what you should have. If you'd like to go darker down here, you can. You could even start doing some distress or some inking around in here if you wanted to, lightly, to give it a little bit. You don't have to. Okie dokie. All we need to do now is then we can open this up. And looking at it like this, you're going to want to have it like this. We're going to apply glue, and we're going to glue that piece center side to side and glue that down. So let's do that. So this is what you should have, and it should look really nice. It is time to get this assembled like this so that we can at least get our magnet that belongs up here centered with that. But first we have to let our sides go. And we're going to do this. And you can do this one at a time to make sure that I get this even. So this one I'm not going to worry about. I'm going to set that off to the side. This is where I am going to make sure that when I bring this up, the bottom is fitting, looping down here, right inside so it's not peeking out. Once you think you have that, you can pinch it up there. Now you can guide it to go back behind this piece so it's not showing, and then you can just pinch it. Okay, make sure it's down. You should be able to press it down now and get that. So that's what it should look like. Let's do our other side, and we're going to be very careful. And I'm going to start down here first, push it back, make sure I line up. I'll just pinch it down here, and that's where now I can guide it to go underneath. And then pinch, and then I can press this down. Not too hard. I'd say that was pretty easy. So now all we need to do is place our mate. And I got it. Place it down and it will find the mate that we hid underneath. And this is a good way to remember how to place your magnet to get them to line up. So once you have that mate down, you're going to put a little drop of glue in the center. And what you're going to do is bring it so that your score line is even with the outside. So you know it's a good fit right there. Bring it down so it's even. Now push, and you will find where that needs to go. then you can place it. And it's glue to glue. So we had glue on the top of the magnet, and we had a glue residue showing us where it goes, so you can just place the glue to glue. And right now I am not, I need a piece of paper because I'm afraid that they're very powerful, and I'm afraid that they're going to attach. So I'm going to put this down to help, but it should close and stay closed. Just be very careful. Let's find our piece for inside here. In your reserves, you should have this piece. We're going to measure over 5 3/8 inch and cut. We'll put this in our reserves. And I'm just going to turn this, and we'll measure over 2 7/8 inch and cut. This should fit right in here. If you'd like to use your distressing and get this all the way around here so it matches the outside, you can do that. Apply glue, because I want the blue side, I think, and I'm going to glue that down, making sure you do not get over that hinge there. Oh, the TV's running in the background. Okay, so I have this down. Now's a great time to check out your magnet, and you should be able to latch. The only thing we have left to do is to make a little bow out of your ribbon, and we are going to glue that down right here. Alrighty, so you should be latching really good. So when we place this, we're going to place this, and I want to leave it so we can slide something back behind. So we're going to actually use our glue for this right on the edge. And we're going to place it, well, let's just center it. That'll be easier. Okay, so we're going to let this sit for a moment, and one thing we're going to want to do is open this up, grab your bone folder, and because we're using wet glue, it might try to slide, but just kind of try to get in there. And it might be best if you go from the outside because we have those little things there. Now I want to show you something really cool that you can do. You can either use this, and this is something that we should have done before we glued it down and assembled, but you can still do it now, and it's just an option. You do not have to do this. So one of my favorite staple items is the boring old circle punch by EK Tools. This is about 1 3/4. You can go 1 1/2, 2, 1, whatever you'd like, but I'm going to show you how you do it without a punch. What you can do is, and this, like I said, you don't have to do this, is just center your Scor-tape and draw with your pencil around to make a little half moon, and then you can cut it out to leave a dip, and then you can get something like this. What I like to do is take my ink then, and again, you don't have to do this, but I like to take my ink and ink around those edges there. So that's an option too that you can do with some of these pockets like this, or any other pocket. Alright, this page is complete, page 1, but let's flip this over, and I'm going to grab my 1/4 inch Scor-tape, and all I'm going to do is line the outside like a picture frame. So I've got my Scor-tape around the outside like a picture frame. Because we have something very bulky and that can hold a lot of weight, we're going to put one strip down the middle, and we're going to put 2 strips in between on each side. We'll want to burnish that down the best we can, and also we're going to clip off any Scor-tape that seems to be peeking over the edge like I got here. We're actually going to mount this page 1 in our book after we mount page 2, and I'll give you the reasoning behind that as soon as we are done with page 2 and ready to put these in. For now, all that we want to do is just set this off to the side. Page 1 is complete. Let's move on to page 2. We're now on page 2, and I had you set this off to the side, and on the back it's blue. In your pre-cutting measurement guide, I had you cut a piece of cardstock that was 2 1/4 inches by 9 inches. And we labeled that side pocket. We're going to grab our music, our Symphony punch. And if you wrote somewhere on the edge or big or whatever, you can erase this. If it's contained down here, you're fine. It's going to get covered with paper. But all we're going to do is punch along the long side here, all the way across. So this is what you should have. And again, I'm going to save these little cutouts of the musical notes. Put them off to the side. Whether I use them or not in this tutorial, I'm not sure, but I think I am. Grab your 1/4 inch Scor-tape, and we're going to lay a piece right at the edge of our paper. And we'll snip off any overhang. And then we have to make sure that we burnish this down really good. Otherwise, you might have lifting. I'm going to remove the backing. I'm going to turn this now. Actually, I'm going to turn it this way. It's easier for me so I don't get my head in the video. So I'm going to give this just a little bit of a bend, no creases. And I'm going to bring this down on top of the Scor-tape, leaving myself enough overhang on each side so I can wrap it around the back. So I gave it a little bend. I'm going to bring it to the edge. Once I do that, I like to start in the middle and press out. Okay, you can use your bone folder again to make sure that's good and down. And now all we have to do is wrap these around the back side and apply glue. Same with over here. Making sure you get these little pieces. Once you've done that, turn that back over. Here is your side pocket. And let me see what I've got. Here's something from my reserves. You can see now we have a functional pocket to place picture mats when we're all done with the tutorial building our album. But let's find a strip to cover this up. And again, this is a good time to erase anything that you think might show up. And I think I'm okay with down there. So let's get into our reserve. In your reserves, you'll have the back piece to your paper pack. And we are going to cut the keys out between the beige, so right on down there, and I'll show you what mine looks like. So this is what you should have here, and all I'm going to do is place this down. This should be a good fit between your trim and the side fitting over there. I'm just going to lay that right on down, and I'm going to make a pencil mark down here where I need to trim it. And then I'm going to trim it. Using your paper cutter is always best, but I am going to give a go at just using some scissors, hoping for the best there. And I'm going to glue that down. I've got mine down, and one thing I didn't do is ink around the edges, but I still can. I'm just going to slide a piece of cardstock in there so I don't get my paper, and I'm just going to ink around those edges. And I'm also going to ink on top because I did that on the previous page. I do like to try and keep things kind of the same, and that's just me though, you don't have to. Alright, this page is complete, and all we need to do now is flip that on over. So I went around the outside edges with my Scor-tape. I put one down the middle and one on either side. I think that's plenty for this piece. We don't have anything real heavy or bulky on this side. Before we go and put this in our book though, we're going to make sure that we burnish this down really good. All of our Scor-tape, especially around the edges, and just get it all over the place there. In the beginning of this video, I had you take your 3/4 inch by 8 1/4 inch cardstock strips, and we punched with our 1/2 inch punch the elegant Flourish scrolls on the long side of each one of these. And I said right before we plant page 2, we're gonna do this. Okay, here's the back of my book, And all we're going to do is attach these. And we're going to attach them to the back of the pages. So we're just going to need a little bit of glue across the bottom, making sure you get your edges there. Here's the back of my book, and we will line that up with the side, just underneath that trim, even, and we will place it. So there's our first one. We'll grab our second, and we're going to do the same thing. We'll grab our next page in line to the back and place it. That looks good. All right, we're going to do this with each one of our pages. Doesn't that look nice? So now you should have the edges of your pages looking like this. Now we could have cut our inner pages big enough and then done it instead of adding the strip, but I wanted to add the strip this time just to show you what things that you can do extra. Now for the back, I want to close up some of these so that they don't catch and tear. We're going to do the same thing that we've done before, and that's cutting little strips about 1/8 inch wide and gluing them down back behind. So I'm going to show you what I did. I just cut little strips like this. And you might want to grab a scratch piece of cardstock to slip back behind there, but all I'm going to do is add some glue, not caking the glue on, just a little bit. And I'll place it at the edge there and at the edge of my paper on the back side. And then I'll clean up any glue that seeps around. That way it strengthens and we still get the benefit of the nice trim. So let's do that, and then we'll plant our page 2. We're ready to mount this. I've got all my stuff down. We're going to move in about 1/8 inch in from this seam here, our hinge. And we're going to center top to bottom. It's hard for me to see what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a go here, right here. And we're going to place it. And it's going to come over on top of your trim. So this is what you will be seeing. And so when you place the next one, it's real easy. You just line it up there. And it strengthens this as well. So once you have that down, you're going to use your bone folder to make sure you've got this down really good. And that's all there is to it. All right, let's go and place page 1. So here's the reason why we want to place our page 2 before 1, is because when we place our page 1, notice our chipboard is bigger than our inner pages, tall, wise, and width. So we can see where our hinge is there, but what we want to do is, especially because we have bulk, is we're going to move this over to the left side as far as we can, leaving ourselves about 1/4 inch from this. Okay, and the biggest thing is lining it up with page 2's top and bottom. So I'm going to remove my Scor-tape and I'm going to place this and show you. I've got the Scor-tape backing off. Make sure that you are not installing this upside down. And I do have to stand up so I can see what I'm doing, and I think you can see too. So I'm just going to move it all the way over to the left where those little things are. And I'm going to try and line it up top and bottom with that page. And I think that that is good, right like that. I hope so. And it's about 1/4 inch in from the side there. Okay, it's down. We definitely have to use our bone folder and go around those edges to make sure it's down really good. And I'm going to open this up and just run my bone folder in there. Okay, you should be latching. And page 1 and 2, they are in our book. We are now on to page 3.